Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to cost $80, $100 if you want the edition with the good cars in it. And the reaction has been roughly what you would expect, which is that this is the moment the industry finally stopped pretending that 80 is the new 60, that 60 was the new 50, and that we are all being quietly walked up a staircase one console generation at a time. That is a completely reasonable thing to believe, and it is what I believed on the morning the price went up, right? Well, then I went and read the paperwork. Because the company charging you $80 for Grand Theft Auto 6 is Take-Two Interactive, and Take-Two is a public company, which means that for the last 21 years, it has been telling its own shareholders what its games cost, in writing, in a document it is not legally allowed to lie in. And that number is worth caring about even if you have never bought a video game in your life. The price of a game is one of the last prices most of us still carry around from childhood, filed in the same drawer as the price of a movie ticket, and a candy bar, and a tank of gas. It is one of the very few places where a person can actually feel what 30 years of inflation has done to them, instead of reading about it in a chart that stops at the year 2000. So here is what Take-Two's paperwork says. In its annual report for 2005, the company told the Securities and Exchange Commission that its games sold at retail for up to $59.99. Put that through the Bureau of Labor Statistics' own inflation figures, and $59.99 in 2005 comes out at $102.58 in today's money, which is more than the $100 they are charging you right now for the most expensive edition of the most anticipated game anybody has ever made. So the sticker has never been higher, and the price, measured in the only way that actually matters, has quietly gone down. And once you notice that, the rest of this industry starts looking extremely strange. Nintendo charged $80 for one Switch 2 launch game and $70 for the other one, on the same day in the same press release. Microsoft announced $80 games in May of last year and unannounced them by July, refunding everybody who had already paid. A subscription went up 50% in a single afternoon and barely made the news. Nintendo was once sued by the United States government over how much its games cost, and settled by mailing out coupons. And the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the agency whose entire job is to know what things cost, publishes an official video game price index containing a grand total of two numbers, both of them from the 1990s. So either 3 decades of inflation somehow skipped this one aisle of the store, or the price of a video game stopped being the price of a video game a long time ago, and nobody thought to update the argument. Let's start with the arithmetic, because the arithmetic is what sent me looking for everything else. Take-Two's annual reports are boring in the way that genuinely useful documents usually are. Buried in the business section, under sales and marketing, there is one sentence the company repeated almost word for 6 years running. Our products generally sell at retail prices ranging from $19.99 to $59.99 in North America. Fiscal 2005, then 6, then 7, then 2008, which is the year Grand Theft Auto 4 came out, then 9, then 10. $59.99 over and over in the company's own words, in a filing, with a lawyer's signature somewhere behind it. And $59.99 was still a perfectly normal price for a video game 15 years after that first filing. Because when 2K put NBA 2K21 on the new consoles in 2020 for $70, the exact same game on the old consoles was still $60. That was the moment everybody agreed a line had been crossed. 2K's official explanation was that the new price, quote, fairly represents the value of what's being offered. Power, speed, and technology that is only possible on new hardware. Which is a sentence assembled by a committee that had been asked to sound relaxed about something. Now hold that $70 for a moment, because $70 in 2020 is $90.31 today, and Grand Theft Auto 6 costs $80. The price that made everybody furious 6 years ago is, in real money, more expensive than the price that is making everybody furious this week. And it gets worse for the outrage, because that same basketball game had a deluxe edition in 2020 at $99.99, which is $129 in today's money, while Grand Theft Auto 6's top edition is $100. So the most expensive version of a yearly sports game 6 years ago cost about a quarter more in real terms than the most expensive version of the biggest game in the history of the medium. Somewhere down the ladder that has to reverse though, right? Well, it doesn't. $59.99 in 2005 is $102.58 today. That same unchanged $60 in 2008, when Grand Theft Auto 4 shipped, is $93. By 2020, the identical $60 price tag had rotted down to about $77 of purchasing power. The number on the box never moved, and the box got cheaper every single year that nobody touched it. And if you want to know how seriously this industry has always taken the number on the box, it is worth remembering that Nintendo once got taken to court over it. In 1991, Nintendo of America settled with the Federal Trade Commission and a group of state attorneys general over allegations that it had been fixing the price of its hardware. The console had been held at $99.95 from June of 1988 to December of 1990, and dealers who discounted it found their supply becoming mysteriously difficult. Nintendo admitted nothing, agreed to stop, and settled by handing out $25 million worth of $5 coupons redeemable against a game cartridge, which is, when you think about it, the most Nintendo resolution imaginable. That $99.95 console, incidentally, is $255 in today's money. So the price of a game went down, in real terms, for 20 solid years, which means somebody was absorbing 20 years of inflation on our behalf. And it would be lovely to tell you that was generosity, wouldn't it? Well, it wasn't. Holding a price at $59.99 for 15 years is not a decision a company makes because it feels warmly about you. It is a decision a company makes because it has found somewhere better to put the increase. Because the cost of building these things went vertical. Take Electronic Arts, which files the same kind of paperwork as everybody else. In its 2017 financial year, EA spent $1.2 billion on research and development, which in a games company overwhelmingly means people making games. By its 2026 financial year, that number had reached $2.8 billion, up 135%, and revenue over the same 9 years, 55. So the cost of making the games grew roughly 2.5 times faster than the money coming in the door, and there is a cleaner way to say that. In 2017, about 25 cents out of every dollar EA collected went straight back out again into development, and by this year, it was 38 cents. That is a treadmill speeding up underneath a company, and it shows up exactly where you would expect it to. In EA's most recent financial year, revenue rose 1% and operating profit fell 24%. Does that sound like a business that has spent 2 decades generously eating inflation on behalf of teenagers? Of course it doesn't. Nobody ate anything. They just moved the till. So it is time to stop arguing about the sticker and start following the money. And to do that, we need to know what a game has actually cost over time. So let's run the numbers and find out whether anybody has even been measuring this. Well, that turns out to be the strangest part of the whole story, because the honest answer is no. Every argument about game prices, including the one I have been confidently making for the last 6 minutes, rests on the phrase adjusted for inflation. But adjusted for inflation according to what exactly? Because that phrase is not a fact, it is a procedure. Somebody has to walk into shops, write prices down, and publish an index. In the United States, that somebody is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it publishes thousands of these indexes at a level of detail that is honestly quite charming. There is an official American price index for pet food, and there is one for funeral expenses. And there is one for video games, called Video Game Hardware, Software, and Accessories, sitting right there in the Bureau's own published item list. It has produced 2 numbers in its entire existence. December 1997, set at 100 because that is where every index starts, and January 1998, which came in at 96.3. And then, nothing. Ask the Bureau's own database for any year from 1999 through to this summer, and it tells you, very politely, that no data is available. So the official American Price Index for video games ran for exactly 1 month, recorded a 4% fall, and was never heard from again. Which means that every confident statement anybody has ever made about game prices adjusted for inflation has quietly been using a substitute. The substitute is toys. In the Bureau's filing cabinet, video game hardware and software sits underneath the heading of toys, and that index is very much alive. What it says is completely mad. In 1995, the toys index stood at 123, and last year it stood at 27.8, which is not a slowdown, but a 77% collapse in the plain sticker price across 30 years, in which everything else in the American economy went up 111%. Do that arithmetic properly, and the official index is telling you that toys and games got 89% cheaper in real terms. Now, I don't believe that, and neither should you. And I want to be careful here because this is exactly the kind of number that ends up screenshotted with its qualifications cut off. Most of what sits inside that index is not video games, it is plastic. And the index also has to somehow handle the fact that a toy in 1995 and a toy today are not the same object at all, which is a genuinely hard statistical problem that serious people argue about for a living. So it is not evidence that games got 89% cheaper. It is evidence that the tidy little phrase adjusted for inflation is carrying far more weight than the people using it tend to admit. But there is one games-related index the Bureau of Labor Statistics never abandoned, one it has updated every single month right through to this June. And it isn't the games, is it? It's the subscriptions. The series is called Subscription and Rental of Video and Video Games, and unlike the sticker price, this one goes up. In 2016, it stood at 123, and this June, it reached 197, which is up 59% across a decade in which everything else in the economy rose 39. And 13 points of that came in the last year alone. So of the two things the American government has ever attempted to measure about video games, the one with a price tag on a shelf was abandoned in 1998, and the one that bills you every month is comfortably beating inflation. So where did the increase actually go? Well, the company's own filings will tell you, in plain language, if you read past the first page. EA's most recent annual report says it out loud, and I want to read the wording exactly, because the wording is the entire point. Our digital live services and other net revenue represented 71% of our total net revenue during fiscal year 2026. 71%. Not the games, the things attached to the games. In dollars, that is $5.4 billion of live services against $2.1 billion for the actual business of selling somebody a game, which means the extras are roughly 2.5 times the size of the thing we all think of as the product. And then there is the number that genuinely stopped me for a minute. Packaged goods, which is accountant for a physical game in a box on a shelf in a store, came to $440 million out of $7.5 billion. 5.8%. The $80 box that this entire argument has been about is now less than a 16th of what Electronic Arts does for a living. And it isn't only EA. Take-Two, the Grand Theft Auto people themselves, told shareholders in May that recurrent consumer spending, their phrase for everything that is not the initial purchase, grew 17%. It made up 78% of their bookings. Microsoft, last October, took Game Pass Ultimate from $20 a month to $30. 50% effective immediately. You remember the outrage about that one, right? There was a weekend of complaining and then everybody moved on, and I would bet a reasonable amount of money that most of the people currently furious about $80 games could not tell you it had happened. The Bureau of Labor Statistics noticed, though. That is where the 13 points came from. So look at what is actually being sold when Rockstar sells you Grand Theft Auto 6. $80 for the game, $100 for the Ultimate Edition, and what that extra 20 buys is cosmetic. Vehicles, weapons, clothes. The physical copy, the boxed one, the one that looks like the object you grew up with, is a code in a box. There is no disc inside it. And Nintendo will sell you Mario Kart World for $80, or for $30 less if you buy it bundled with the console, which tells you roughly how much that 80 really means. The price didn't go up. The price stopped being a price and became an entry fee. Which brings us to this morning, and to the largest bet anybody has ever placed on that being the correct reading of this industry. Because as of today, Electronic Arts is no longer a public company. The filing went in this morning. Shareholders received $210 a share in cash, and the total consideration came to approximately $55 billion. EA has been removed from the NASDAQ. The buyers are a consortium of Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, Silver Lake, and affinity partners, and some of it is borrowed. They signed a new credit agreement with JP Morgan on the day the deal closed. The agreement behind all of it was signed last September, so this took 10 months to work its way through. $55 billion. And I want to set that next to one single number out of EA's own annual report and then get out of the way, because I don't think it needs any help from me. Physical games, in boxes, 5.8% of revenue. Nobody pays $55 billion for the 5.8%. So here is the honest version, including the part that cuts against everything I have just said. If it feels like games have gotten more expensive, you are right about your bank account and wrong about the price. And both of those can be true at once, because the price was never the part that was growing. Measured per hour of entertainment, a modern game is one of the outright bargains of the modern economy. And I am not being sarcastic about that. $80 for something you will spend 200 hours inside is a rate that would embarrass a movie ticket. And anybody telling you that gaming has become a luxury is arguing with the arithmetic. That part is real, and it matters, and I could be wrong about where this goes next. Maybe $80 doesn't stick, the way Microsoft's $80 didn't stick. Maybe Grand Theft Auto 6 sells so absurdly well at that price that $90 becomes a conversation by 2028. But the thing that actually changed isn't the number. It's that the number on the box stopped being the answer to the question, how much does this cost, and started being the cover charge at the door. The industry worked that out about 15 years before the rest of us did, and the paperwork has been sitting there in public the whole time. If you got something out of this, hit subscribe so we can keep running the numbers.